if it was up to these people, they would have a 2008 banking crisis every 3 years. And again, they won't care because they know they'll get a bailout.
Sam Seder in the Majority Report. Take a look at Joe Rogan's show where he has Marc Andreessen on, a billionaire who's spouting some absolute baloney. Let's take a listen.
Joe Rogan, I hope most people know, is, he has an aesthetic of a blue-collar guy, but he's not, his father was an architect. And Joe Rogan hasn't had, he was on news radio in the early 90s. So Joe Rogan has been making hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, and not like tens of millions of dollars, but like, $600,000, $700,000, $1 million, really, for the past 30 years. And he got into sitcoms a little bit before me, and I think he's got to be my age. And I was making, that kind of money in my mid to late 20s. He must have been doing it even earlier. And he made much more than that because he was on that show, News Radio, for a regular period of time. So all of his blue collar, common sense stuff is just an aesthetic. Understand that. It's an aesthetic. And here he is with Marc Andreessen, a billionaire. And what are they talking about? The problem is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which has basically gotten about $16 billion worth of money from banks and given it back to consumers because they've been ripped off and they want to get rid of it. Listen to this.
Position of deciding who gets money. It's time to unleash economic growth.
Elon explained that there's more agencies than there have been years of the United States.
Correct. Yeah, 450 federal agencies and 2 new ones a year.
I just like how baby-brained this is.
I know.
Are you telling me there's more agencies in the U.S. government than there are years that the government... who gives a shit? There's also metric. 235 more, 200 more Congress people than there are years.
There's more stars in the sky than there have been presidents. Do you not see the problem?
Like the idea you have 450 agencies for a population of 330 million people? Like, this is the most baby brain thing I've ever heard in my life.
That is pretty stupid.
You know who's got more? The guy sitting across from you has more millions than there are agencies in this country. What do you think about that? Go ahead.
Unleash economic growth.
Elon explained that there's more agencies than there have been years of the United States.
Correct. Yeah, 450 federal agencies and 2 new ones a year. And then my favorite twist is we have this thing called independent federal agencies. So like, for example, we have this thing called the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, CFPB, which was it's sort of Elizabeth Warren's personal agency that she gets to control. And it's an independent agency.
Oh my God.
Complete effing lie. It's the Consumer Financial Protection Agency, not finance. It is funded in the same way that like the FDIC is funded by fees. It is funded by the fees and fines it collects from the institutions it regulates. Now, like, this is the two-step, right? Like, on one hand, we're not going to fund these agencies. On the other hand, we're not going to allow it to fund the law breaking that it pursues. These guys want to protect the bankers. These are the blue collar everyman talk from Joe Rogan. Go ahead.
Facebook investors. Sort of Elizabeth Warren's personal agency that she gets to control. And it's an independent agency that just gets to run and do whatever it wants, right? And if you read the Constitution, like, there is no such thing as an independent agency, and yet there it is.
What does her agency do?
Whatever she wants.
What does it do, though?
Basically, terrorize financial institutions, prevent fintech, prevent new competition, new startups that want to compete with the big banks.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
How so?
Just by terrorizing anybody who tries to do anything new in financial services.
Can you give me an example?
Debanking. This is where a lot of the debanking comes from, is these agencies. So debanking is when you as either a person or your company are literally kicked out of the banking system.
Like they did to Kanye.
Exactly, like they did to Kanye. My partner Ben's father has been debanked.
So what does the CFPB do? They ordered the Navy Federal Credit Union to pay over $95 million because they charged illegal surprise overdraft fees with consumers over a 5-year period from 2017 to 2022. Cash Call, they were fined $167 million for using deceptive, abusive practices with loans. TD Bank, people may remember this one. They were ordered to pay $28 million because of fraud. They illegally threatened Consumer Reports from with fraudulent information. I mean, there have been a bunch of different settlements, up to $2.7 billion. They're fining companies for screwing people over.
Okay, and let's be clear. I mean, you can Google this. The idea that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau had anything to do with debanking Kanye West, it was Jamie Dimon and Chase that debanked him. This is just like complete, absolute bullshit. And watch Joe Rogan gobble it up. Gobble it up. First of all, I mean, everybody listening to this knows this. It is not Elizabeth Warren's agency. She started it. No, she had the idea and started it, but was not even allowed to run it by Barack Obama.
Because he was listening to people like Marc Andreessen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, you said, debanking. This is where a lot of the debanking comes from, is these agencies.
I can't get over the nervous breathing pattern he's got. These people are mutants, and the only reason he's sitting across from Joe Rogan is he has lots of money from a good bet on Facebook years ago.
He's lying. He knows it. It's the same reason Peter Thiel can't talk in front of an audience. It's when they have to talk to humans, they can't, because these guys are sociopathic, money obsessed freaks.
And honestly, I don't know if you're watching this or if you're just listening to it, but if you're watching it, you can see the dead eyes. They're like glass doll eyes on this guy.
Same thing when Elon Musk talks about, have you ever seen the streets of San Francisco? You can't even walk from one side of the street. You've never walked on the streets of San Francisco in your life, bro. I mean, when they have to be confronted with anything outside of their own fart sniffing, it is bumbling. Keep going.
100%.
How so?
Just terrorizing anybody who tries to do anything new in financial services.
Can you give me an example?
Well, like I said, debanking. This is where a lot of the debanking comes from, is these agencies. So debanking is when you as either a person or your company are literally kicked out of the banking system.
Like they did to Kanye.
Exactly, like they did to Kanye. My partner Ben's father has been debanked.
Really?
We had an employee who...
For what?
For having the wrong politics. for saying unacceptable things. Under current banking regulations, here's a great thing. Under current banking regulations...
So Kanye was, Chase decided to end their relationship with Kanye because he was spewing anti-Semitism. This has 100% nothing to do with a government agency. 100%.
It's not even that. It's the CFPB. Here's an article from August 8, 2024. CFPB says ruling on bias hurts its power to prevent debanking. Consumer Prevention... yeah, you can put this up, Bradley. Zoom in more so I can read it. But the CFPB examiners would be blocked from protecting customers who lose access to bank accounts for religious or other reasons if a Texas federal judge's decision on the CFPB's efforts to combat discrimination is allowed to stand. The agency told the Federal Appeals Court, skip a paragraph. Without that power, the CFPB would be unable to determine whether customers have been denied bank accounts or charged higher fees because of discriminatory activity, the agency said. So literally, it's the opposite of what this over-moneyed buffoon is telling Joe Rogan.
He's going in there and he's saying words like terrorize. Yeah. And why does he say that? Because he has no examples. All he knows is that he does not want any type of regulations, because they do not want any regulations on the banking industry, because they want to be able to take your money, use it in institutions that you think are vanilla banks that, have certain capital requirements, so that when you go in to get your money, that the money is going to be available and has not been gambled on some type of third level derivative, long shot bet that is making these guys a ton of money. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
And he's
If
referring
it weren't for these people, if it was up to these people, they would have a 2008 banking crisis every 3 years. And again, they won't care because they know they'll get a bailout.
Well, they did Silicon Valley Bank. This guy's tied to that.
Yep.
And Horowitz is who he's referring to there, right? His co-host, Ben Horowitz, who got debanked that he's referring to. I don't know fully the specifics of that, but I know that Horowitz and his firm is a deep investor in crypto, and he's been really angry that the Biden administration has been attacking the crypto industry. So I'm sure, like, when he says debanked, it's not too much of a logical leap to assume that they were ripping off people.
Silicon Valley Bank lent cash to many of the top venture firms, including Andreessen Horowitz. Oh, yeah, interesting.
Right.
So, when you have hundreds and millions of dollars, you can make money just by having that much money, and I agree with Sam Seder here that this, listening to a person talk about how regulatory agencies are terrorizing rich people like him is absolute baloney. They're trying to put some sort of guardrails on these folks playing fast and loose with our collective cash. And Sam Seder is right. This is exactly what got us into the 2008 real estate bubble. And all of these guys sailed away on little golden, yachts and parachutes because the government bailed them all out because, we can't, the economy can't run without the financial services, and there's woefully inadequate checks and balances on the financial services, and guys like this are trying to deregulate it. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Are you a fan of Sam Seder's here? It's exhausting listening to them try and fact check this, maelstrom of baloney, but it seems pretty clear to me that we can have a capitalist society where there's going to be people who make a lot of money and are rewarded for their efforts, and there can be very reasonable and enforceable checks and balances that keep things from going off the rails. But I want to know what you think. But let me know in the comments.